Coming up.
And so you have to really make the great effort to take time for yourself. Fear, anxiety, depression are constant, battlefield for us. But we can come against it if we are more intentional, and if we take the time, to invest. Think of it as investing, in yourself. Think of it as investing in your mental health and even your physical health, to get outside, to breathe some fresh air, to put your phone down for, 5 or 10 minutes.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. A couple of years ago, I went through one of the toughest health episodes of my life. I found myself in a really, really dark place, and honestly, it felt like the world was caving in all around me. I didn't know where to turn or what to do. I knew I needed something, but it just seemed like nothing was working. And therapy didn't work for me in the past. But then, with the encouragement of my wife, I decided to give today's sponsor, BetterHelp, a try, even though I was a little skeptical at first. And let me say, it was so different. I connected with a therapist, and simply talking with her helped me lower my anxiety in ways I didn't expect. Sometimes it's just about having someone outside of your family to listen, and BetterHelp made that so easy. What I love most about BetterHelp is the flexibility. You don't have to commit to months of sessions if that's not what you need. Sometimes a few sessions are all it takes to get some relief, to take the edge off, and start feeling a little better. Plus, they have a wide selection of therapists. You can find someone you really click with, and if you don't, you can switch therapists anytime at no extra cost. If you're like me, someone who gets stuck in their head a lot, BetterHelp might be the answer. And right now, if you visit betterhelp.com/sold-separately or use the link in this video's description, you can get 10% off your first month. So give it a try. Remember, you can't take care of anyone else in your life until you take care of yourself.
Auto sequence start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And now, on with the show.
Hi, I'm Babbie Mason, and my happiness is singing a song.
All right. Hello, Babbie Mason. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. It's so good to see you. You're a two-time Dove Award-winning Christian artist, best-selling author, speaker, TV show host. You're busy.
I'm a busy girl. I'm not letting any moss grow up underneath my feet.
It's better than the alternative, right? Being busy.
I just want to use all my gifts for God, and even explore some things that I have been at, even at this stage of life. I'm still making new discoveries, and that's what I love about life. This is what I love about ministry. What I love about creativity is that, as long as the music keeps playing, I keep writing. As long as the ideas keep flowing, man, I keep chasing them.
That's what we got to do. I think we owe God a disservice if we're not using our talents right in an active way like that.
Yeah, I think it was Irma Bombeck, one of my favorite. Definitely one of my favorite comedians, but she said this, I'll see if I can quote this right. She said, "When I stand before God at the end of my life, I would hope that I would not have a single bit of talent left, but I could say to God, I used everything you gave me." And
wow, I love that.
I've kind of adapted that as my mantra, so to speak.
I love that. Oh, well, you've had, let's see, how many, something like 26 music projects, is that right?
26 recorded projects. I'm working on number 27 right now.
Wow.
I'm working on a Christmas project, and which
Nice.
is a lot of fun because I'm including my youngest son, Chaz, who is also a singer, and my producer friend, Cheryl Rogers. The three of us are planning a Christmas tour right now. And I'm also working on a new worship project. So I've been writing, recording, singing, traveling, touring, and planning my next tour.
Wow. That keeps you busy for sure. Keeps you going. And it's like, how many books have you written? 9 books? Is that right?
9 books. My latest book is called Each One Reach One, Everyday Ways You Can Shine God's Light. And the book encourages every believer to take whatever it is that, whatever gift or talent that God has placed in their hands and use that to shine their light and to share their faith and to tell others about the Lord.
Wow. Where do you think you get your creative energy or inspiration from? Does that go all the way back to your childhood growing up?
Yeah, a lot of it was taught. A lot of it was taught by my parents. My father was a pastor, and my parents and my mom was a wonderful singer. Both of them are deceased now, but they
Mm,
came up from the South during that era when a lot of Black people were moving up from the South to the northern states, looking for work. And so my parents had this innovation, this work ethic that was just highly commendable. My dad started a church in Michigan. That's where I was born. After they moved north, they established Lily Missionary Baptist Church in Jackson, Michigan, which is where
mm,
I was born and raised. And so my parents, they were, like the Bible says, all things to all people, that they might win some. I mean, they wore a lot of hats. My dad was a pastor. He was also a writer. He was in radio. He was a county commissioner. He was a college professor. He was a prison chaplain. So they were,
wow.
they loved using all of their gifts. They love serving people. So it comes naturally for me. So a lot of it was caught and a lot of it was taught. I had wonderful mentors and teachers and great access to education. I'm a lover of education. I taught
Mm,
middle high school music for a lot of years, and I love higher ed. I just got my master's degree a couple of years ago from Trevecca University in Nashville, Tennessee. My plan is to go back and get my doctorate after I finish with a couple of other projects. So I just love life. I love, I'm a continuous student. I love learning. I love teaching what I think I know. And I think a lot of that came from just growing up in a household where education and pursuing our dreams was really important.
mm. Wow. It's so good to hear. I mean, you look around sometimes today and I don't know, you kind of wonder about the family dynamic and what's going on. And how important do you think as kids for us coming up to see our parents have that work ethic and to be able to, I mean, I think kids learn a lot just by seeing how our parents operate and the things they go through, don't you? I mean,
Um,
just in life in
I
general.
mean, absolutely. And I still think that we are carrying on, that mindset and that work ethic with my family. My youngest son, Chaz, is a singer, crazy, crazy. I'm not saying that's just because I'm his mother, but he is a very, very gifted young man. His name is Chaz Mason, and he and I work closely together. He writes, we serve together at Eastside Baptist Church in Marietta,
Mm,
Georgia, where we both lead worship. I'm on the road, a couple Sundays or weekends a month. So I'm not there as often as Chaz is. He's there pretty much every Sunday on stage leading worship. And so we get to serve together. We get to write together, record together. We're touring some together. And so I'd like to think that what I was taught, by my mom and dad, I'm passing it on to my kids.
wow. And how special is that to be able to work with your son like that in a close relationship and in the church? You can't ask for much more than that,
To
right?
me, it's the best of all worlds. You know what I'm saying? It is the best. It's, as the old musical song says, it's nice work if you can get it, but it's also a great privilege to be able to do what I love and love what I do. That's just to me,
Hmm.
it's a dream come true.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that it's
Absolutely.
not work because it is a lot of
No.
work, but it's bearing a lot of fruit that I planted a lot of seeds in. I get to do what I've dreamed of doing even more than that. I get to um, travel and meet people like you, speak to people, share my dreams, share my heart, my visions, impact people with my words and my music. I mean, really, that's a blessing.
Wow. Well, I am honored to be able to talk to you. So I agree with this conversation. I'm so glad you're here. Um, Going back to your childhood a little bit, what do you remember most about those days with your mom and your dad in the church, but your dad having such a leadership role as a pastor? Did you look at it like that, or was he just dad to you as a kid?
It was. Just dad. I remember when I was a little kid, I started taking piano lessons real early, like first grade, and studying classical music, the classical composers like Bach and Brahms and Chopin. And then I remember when I was about 9 years of age, a vacancy came up in the church where the church needed a piano player, and my dad, saw that I had this musical talent, and the next thing I know, I was just I wouldn't say forced, but told. I was, as we call it in my neighborhood, I was voluntold. I wasn't volunteered. I was voluntold that I would be the next piano player. And it was a big responsibility for a 9-year-old. All the rehearsals and Sunday morning worship services, and sometimes our church visited other churches during the midweek, when I was having to do my homework in the backseat of the car. But what it established was, number one, a discipline. It established in me opportunity to use all my gifts. It some of it was like learning how to. It was like sink or swim, because I had to learn how to play the piano by ear. My church didn't use music, so everything was learned. Everything was taught by rote or by ear. But that just helped me to navigate, I think, the gifts and the talents that I'm using today. So it was a great jumping off point. Yeah, there was a time when in my teenage years when I kind of resented the responsibility when my other friends, were dating or playing out in the street or going out with their boyfriends or whatever. I was,
Sure.
At choir rehearsal, or I was at a church worship service. And so there were some sacrifices early on, but I thank the Lord that it paid off, and it has contributed to, who I am today. So I'm grateful for that.
And what a special moment that your dad saw that in you, and wouldn't let you get away per se from that responsibility of the piano, because I feel like our parents see things in us and encourage us to try different things or to go forward with something, and that's again goes back to that tight knit family that's so important.
I totally agree. I'm in the middle of five, and I can say that about all of my siblings, not just me. My oldest brother uh, is a retired pastor. My
Hmm.
older brother is a journalist. My sister she's a middle school math coach, but she's also an entrepreneur. My youngest brother works for the state of Michigan, but we all, have, gifts and talents that we use in other businesses or other endeavors. We work together on some projects. So, it's not just me that caught this love for life and this entrepreneurial spirit, but my other siblings as well.
Wow, that's great. That is awesome. I think with their dads, I think moms and dads are both important, but I think with their dads, there's that relationship where you get that fatherly advice sometimes, or the wisdom that they put out. Do you remember anything that sticks with you today that your dad told you as you're coming up?
Oh yeah, my dad was an avid reader and a wonderful. I would kind of equate my dad to like that preacher like Martin Luther King or C.L. Franklin, Aretha Franklin's dad. That Mississippi preacher that had this delivery like um, it was almost like as if they were singing their sermons. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and what we would call in the black church a hoop, where they would begin to preach like that, and the
Yeah.
church, it was this rhythm that was, that was established when dad was preaching. But along the line, my dad just loved great reading, great quotes. And I remember my dad using kind of as his life, some words that he used for life. He used to say, if God is your partner, make your plans larger. And he had a
Mm.
radio broadcast. And something funny about the radio broadcast, it was on a local radio station on a Sunday morning from 9 to 9:30. And immediately after the program was the what was the name of the it was the program that immediately followed ours was the polka hour. And so right out of my dad's sermon, my dad would be right in the middle of preaching the gospel, and he would be preaching about Jesus on the cross and Jesus conquering death, hell, sin, and the grave. And the next thing you would hear is, roll out the barrel, we'll have a barrel of fun. So it was, he just rolled with the punches. Dad was,
Yeah,
he was a big dreamer, and he loved the quote, "If God is your partner, make your plans larger." And so we've just done our best to carry out that dream.
that's so true. I mean, if you've got God on your side, there's nothing that's impossible in
Absolutely.
front of you. That's for sure. I bet your dad loved that. He got a kick out of that, probably the polka stuff.
Oh, listen, we have recordings of it. We recorded some of those sermons, and it's hilarious because he didn't have a nice clean cut into the program, so he was right in the middle of his sermon. They would end the show and roll right into the next program. So
Wow.
we just took it as it came.
Yeah. Sorry about my co-producers here. The puppies are getting getting wild. Sorry about. I don't know if
That's
you can
okay.
hear that.
We have dogs too.
I love that when you're a minute ago talking about the kind of almost singing with the sermon. Is that where does that style? What are the roots of that? Because I'm very interested in that style. Is that to, I don't know, somehow help keep the congregation interested, and there's like a rhythm to that sermon style?
Well, I remember my daddy saying often, he said that he wouldn't serve a God that he couldn't feel.
Mm.
And that kind of preaching is not only informative, it's not only spiritual, but it's also emotional. And, the Black church, the Black community has come from a history of pain, a history of heartache, a history of loss. And the Black preacher, he historically is all things to all people. I mean, I remember my dad, as a little girl, my dad would get phone calls in the middle of the night from, because somebody died or somebody was in jail or somebody was in the hospital or somebody was sick, somebody needed legal advice. And oftentimes they were hesitant to call a lawyer or hesitant to call somebody in the community because they didn't trust that person. And so, but they trusted the Black preacher. And so the Black preacher was the liaison. He was that person in the middle that assisted everybody in the community. And my daddy was that person. And so I think that style of preaching comes from this need to have not only a spiritual outlet, but an emotional outlet. And that's why, when we sing, we shout, we cry, we clap, we dance, because we believe in making a joyful noise to the Lord, but it is also this way of expressing our worship physically. The Bible says, make a joyful noise, clap your hands, shout unto God. And that was our way. And it still is our way of expressing our worship.
Wow. And you don't think about that sometimes with the role of a pastor, but yeah, he takes on several, jobs as kind of like you said, a counselor, someone who's passed or someone who needs him.
Absolutely.
That had to really pull on him, I guess, during that. There's a lot of emotional energy that he had to spend.
Absolutely. And I love it. I have this opportunity of growing up in the Black church. And I went to school. I got my degree from a Free Methodist college. And I got my master's degree from a Nazarene college. I teach at a Church of God university. So, I think I'm kind of taking on that same vision of my father of, serving people, just kind of being this person who loves the church, loves people, regardless of their race or denomination or their background. I just want to be used of God to serve people and to bring them closer to God, to help them fulfill their dreams, and to be a blessing to the body of Christ at large,
Yeah, absolutely. Does it worry you at all when you look around today that how divided we all seem? Do you think that we're missing something that could bring us together, or is it the blame of the media and politics? And how do we get to a better place, I guess, with where we are? Or are we just, I often think of it as division seems to be a big business. And if we're divided, it seems, and we're fighting amongst each other, it
Yeah.
seems like the government can get away with stuff, or we're not really paying attention to the ball, as it were, what's going on.
Well, I think for the most part, nothing has changed. I think people will always be, there'll always be this division between people because everybody thinks they're right, you know.
Yeah, right.
But I think the media oftentimes contributes to the frenzy. And now that we're in the information age, it's information overload, which conjures up fear, which conjures up division and all of those things that keeps people at odds with one another. And that's why I love what I do, because I get to write songs, sing songs, write books that I hope will bring down, a lot of that. And if I can, do that one person at a time, then I think my mission is accomplished. I and I think it is. I get a lot of mail, a lot of emails, a lot of communication online from people who, are letting me know that my songs are a source of comfort and hope to them. And so I think if we, here again, if we take whatever we have in our hand and use it to bring one another, to bring the body of Christ or bring the world together, then, we can't. Yeah, the government has its place and the media has its place, but I think every one of us has a responsibility to contribute whatever we have in our hand and use love as a as a medium to do it. Then we can do our part to make the world a better place. And that's just not something nice to say, but it really can happen, because I'm seeing it happen in my own world.
I believe so too. I believe that using our talents, being able to, like you said, use love in that case, and really listen to one another, and just realize that we are all in this together. I mean, there's a lot of things that we could point out to say that we're different from this way or that way, but there's a lot more that we find ourselves alike than we do different.
Absolutely.
I think that's what we need to
mean,
focus
listen,
on.
not long ago, I got a picture. I wrote a song called Trust His Heart. And the lyrics say, the chorus says, God is too wise to be mistaken. God is too good to be unkind. When you don't understand, when you don't see his plan, when you can't trace his hand, trust his heart. And recently, I got a picture of a lady's, of her mother's headstone with those words carved in her mother's headstone. And
wow.
I mean, when you see that and you realize that something that you say, or something that you wrote, or something that you said in a podcast, or something that you put in a book, or something that you said from a platform impacted somebody's life to the degree that they chiseled it in their mother's headstone. I mean, that just brings life right down to, where the rubber meets the road. And that is what
Wow.
I think keeps me just humble. And I got a letter today in the mail from a lady from North Carolina who is a member of a quilting club. And the name of her group is called the Sisterhood. And she wrote me to tell me that one Sunday this month, they're going to celebrate their 3rd anniversary. And they are going to march into the church using one of my songs called A Place Called Sisterhood as their theme song. And so when you hear those kind of stories, I mean, we're talking about real people, real life, real stories, real impact. And to me, that is the kind of difference that I want to make,
Wow, absolutely. Those are like little winks from God, aren't they? I mean, they kind
big
of show you're on the right
God.
track.
It just lets you know that, you plant a seed and you water that seed. The Bible says some plant, some water, but God gives the increase. And if I can plant a seed or water a seed and watch it bear fruit in the life of somebody who's encouraged by a song that I sang or something that I wrote or said from the platform, then that's just a little hug from God that I must be doing maybe a little something right.
I love that. I love that story. It gives you hope to hear things like that, because you realize that God is watching, and God does give you those graces to know that your work is righteous when you're putting it out there. Not that it's us, it's we're being used by God, but it's just
Absolutely.
kind of gives you that hope, I guess, in the world.
You're absolutely
Um,
right.
You've got a lot of your songs now are really considered modern day church classics, and that story is an example of that. Do you have a favorite collaboration over the years?
I kind of look at my songs kind of like my kids, they're conceived in love, and a lot of them will grow up and leave home. I have just as many, if not more, in the file cabinet, that other people will never see, but I love them just the same. And so it's like pick a day. I love different
Yeah.
songs on different days and love them for different reasons. I do love Trust His Heart. All Rise is probably one of the more popular songs. It's one of the oldest songs that I've written. Um, I love Standing in the Gap. I love With All My Heart. I love um, God Will Open Up the Windows and Pour You Out a Blessing, which is a duet that I did with my mother.
Hmm.
It's on YouTube. My mom is deceased, but the YouTube video is into the many thousands. So my mom is
Oh.
a YouTube sensation. Yeah, that's really cool. My mom and I
Yeah.
recorded this song many years ago, back in the early 2000s, and it's called "God Will Open Up the Window." So I have a lot of songs that I love, and a lot of people enjoy listening to. I wrote a um, I wrote a song. I did a record called what was the name of the record called? What was that record called? It was a jazz record. Anyway, there was a song on the record called Play It Again, and another song called Simply I Love You. And these songs are written in kind of like a jazz style, and
Mm-hmm.
just shows off a lot of the cool songwriting techniques. So I love those songs for the writing style and the singing style. I'm a jazz aficionado and love the style of jazz and love singing jazz. And so this
Mm-hmm.
record, um, Play It Again, Simply I Love You, Timeless. The name of the record is called Timeless. And those songs I love that style, and I love those songs for that reason. So I have a lot of favorites, and but those are a few of the favorites.
I love jazz too. I think the one thing I love about jazz and the history of jazz is it's still very much played today, but popular. I mean, is that music is kind of like they were the early days. They're ahead of their time a little bit. It was just
Well, the
it's just
genre
such a
is
really cool.
timeless. The genre
Yeah.
will never. It's kind of like R&B and gospel. It's a genre that is foundational to our culture, and
Mm-hmm.
so it'll never grow. It'll never grow old, and it'll never die. And there's a part of me that here again, it's that love of the genre and that style that helps me emotionally express myself. And so that's why I love the style. Growing up coming of age in the '70s, and growing up outside of Motown, being
Mm-hmm.
influenced by the likes of Aretha and Roberta and Gladys and all of those queens of R&B, that we call them by their first name. I mean, their
Right.
music changed my life. And there was one lady who was a Christian singer. She was one of Andre Crouch's disciples, and I loved her music probably most of all because she had that R&B kind of a style like Motown, but she sang and wrote Christian music. And
Mm.
her name is Danny Bell Hall. I don't know if you've heard of her, but you need to check out Danny
I haven't
Bell
heard of her.
Hall. Her music,
Yeah.
she's deceased now, but her music was to me the epitome of contemporary gospel music because she incorporated all of that. She was a singer, she was a songwriter, she was a piano player, she was an amazing communicator and performer, and yet she wrote music for God. And so I
Wow.
consider her, besides my mother, I consider Danny Bell Hall probably the ultimate mentor for me because she
Mm-hmm.
incorporated all of those gifts and she dedicated her gifts and talents to gospel music. And I love her style. She still influences me today.
Wow. And all those women that you mentioned and yourself included there, you're such great storytellers, because I think in any art form, you have to be a great storyteller in order to get that message out. Don't you? I mean, I think that's the core issue of that, because it's emotion and it's telling a story.
Listen, that's what life is made up of. Every day is a different story. And I've
Yep.
come to find and learn the value of story. And when you read my books, you'll see and hear, a lot of anecdotal illustrations, a lot about my life, a lot about my parents' life. Because listen, you're the one with your own story. And if you don't tell it, it won't get told. And I
Mm.
found that when we tell our story, three things happen when we tell our story. Number one, I get blessed by telling it. Another person gets blessed by hearing it, and then God gets the glory. So, I just want to encourage you. Congratulations on your podcast.
Oh,
And
thank
and
you.
I'm grateful that you're telling your story and that you're giving other people the opportunity to tell their stories on this platform. So, this is the era of storytelling. And so I just want to encourage those that are watching this podcast, to get your story out there, and particularly your God story,
Mm.
online or on in a podcast or in an email or in a text message. However you get it out there, tell your story to make God look good.
Yeah. Wow. So well said. I mean, I think story is something that I think takes us back and connects us from years and years ago. I mean, from the first humans were telling stories, and we see that on markings on cave walls. And I mean, there's
Exactly.
storytelling has been around for eons. And I think, like you said, that's something that just it withstands time, and the legacy it just carries on through. Wow. I know another thing I wanted to ask you about. I know women's issues and bringing women closer to Jesus is really important to you. Is there a story behind that particular ministry with women? Is this something close to your heart?
Listen, I have so many stories. I could tell you the story of my mother.
Mm.
As I told you a moment ago, that my mother was a phenomenal singer. As a matter of fact, I have a couple of Dove Awards right there, and
Oh yes, that's
I
awesome.
won a Dove Award for Recorded Gospel Song of the Year for "Stop by the Church," which was a duet with my mother, and we won that Dove Award in 1996. So that's a great story. But I'll tell you something that my mother said. We did an interview one day. It was a Mother's Day weekend, and my mom was in Michigan on the phone, and I was here in Georgia on the phone. And the guy that was hosting the show asked my mother for some closing words, and these words I will never forget that my mother said. She said to the listening audience, and I'll share this story. She said, I could tell you, this is what my mother said. She said, I could tell you to hang in there. You know how a lot of people will say that will be their response when you ask how they're doing. They'll say, well, I'm hanging in there. Well, my mother said,
Right.
I'm not going to tell you to hang in there, because when you're hanging in there, you're exposed. When you're hanging in there, you're at risk. You are dashed about by the elements. So I'm not going to tell you to hang in there, but instead, I'm going to tell you to stand in there. The book of
Mm.
Ephesians, chapter 6, tells us, having done all, to stand. Stand therefore and put on the whole armor of God, that you might be able to withstand the fiery darts of the wicked one. She says, we don't
Mm.
have to hang in there. We can stand in there because Jesus hung in there for us. So I carry those words with me. Don't hang in there, stand in there. And my mother
Wow.
reminded me of that many years ago. And so to this moment, I don't take this position of, just a lackadaisical stance or, this, well, it'll work out. No, I take this position that it will work out because God is on my side. It will work out because, I believe God's word, that now unto him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that I could ask or think, according to the power that works within me. And so my mom, she was a great woman. She was a motivator, and she just had this consternation, this
Yeah.
constitution that was just unbendable. She had a resolve of steel, and I carry her determination and her love with me. And I'd like to think that, it encourages me and is a part of the fuel that, keeps me going.
When you say the story of the hang in there, I get the image of, if you're hanging in there, image of a storm. You're exposed to the elements. You don't really know what's going to happen, but if you're standing in there, you're facing the storm in confidence and knowing that you're going to get through it.
That's right.
So I like that. I love that image.
That's the message. That is the message. That's the bottom line.
Yep. Jesus he never promised that we wouldn't have storms, but he did promise that he would be there with us and give us a path through. So I love that. Do you, strong women, they're the cornerstone of families. And I think, they're so important. Do you ever worry about that, about women and I don't know, just the society today? It seems like in the past we took, I guess, I don't know if we took gave it more importance, but it just seems like some of the family unit just seems to be falling away. And I think that takes a strong father and strong mother, but these strong women that we grew up with, I just feel like they're really special.
Yes. I am blessed to, and this is something that I do intentionally, and I think you have to be intentional. I am a part of a community of women that we meet every Monday online for an hour, where we encourage one another, we pray for one another, we have this bond where we share in confidentiality, what's going on in our world. And there are other women in ministry, other women in creative arts, and we do this on a weekly basis. And I think we need to, to be very intentional, because these kind of things just don't happen. You have to make them happen. And that's why I'm really intentional about meeting with this group every week. And I try not to miss unless there's something of an emergent, kind of a situation. But I highly recommend that you become a part of a family, obviously your family, but being a part of a community where you can be strengthened, encouraged by people of like mind and maybe even like giftedness, because we're living in a day and age where there's so much coming against us that I call them the D words, that can discourage us, keep us despondent, distracted, distorted, diseased. So yeah, I highly recommend being a part of a community where you can be encouraged, where you can share your life, where you can maybe even share projects or entrepreneurial endeavors. It's so important to stay connected.
Absolutely. I think, given the chance, the devil works really hard to try to tear us down. Especially I've found when I always think, okay, I'm on the right track if I'm trying to be destroyed by Satan, or he's trying to put a wrench in that, and stop it. That's happened to me a couple of times where we've tried to get projects off the ground, and, I would either, I don't know, get really exhausted, tired, or just something like I was being worn out by the devil, because you just feel that he doesn't want that to happen. And it's like, what you're trying to do is for God and on the right path, because he wouldn't come after you so hard if it wasn't. So
Absolutely.
Community can really,
and you're doing something right when you have opposition, from spiritual forces that try to keep you from accomplishing your goals. So if you're getting pushback, from these forces, that doesn't mean that you throw in the towel and you quit, but it means that you double your efforts, and that you and you pray and you work, and you don't get tired. And if you do, take a break, but don't quit. Don't throw in the towel, but you keep going, and you make headway, even if it's a little headway. But if you keep doing it and you keep working at it, and you know that you're called, and you know that this is something that God wants you to do, then you keep going until the project is done.
Yeah, like my dad says a lot. He says, "Make sure you're right, and then go forward. Make sure you're in a point where it's for God, or it's you're doing something in the right. And
I like it.
Don't let anything stop you." Yeah, I love this quote I read on your website about getting closer to God and Christ means being a good listener. I love that, just because of what we try to do with storytelling and documentary work and journalism. It's being good listeners is very important. What does that mean to you?
Well, I have this opportunity to kind of do what you're doing. I have a television show called Babbie's House, and it's seen on, well, we record the show at WATC TV 57 here in Atlanta, but it's everywhere. It's online. You can go, you can search for Babbie's House. And something that I've discovered, because sometimes I don't get the information, the book or the bio information until like the author or the singer is like walking on, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't have a whole lot of time sometimes to do a lot of background information. But what I've learned is if you're a good listener, and what that means is it means being genuinely concerned. It means being genuinely um, interested in that person that you're talking with. And if you lean in and listen and make it about them, and remembering to ask those 5 W's and an H: who, what, when, where, how, and why, and be genuinely interested in what you're hearing. Sometimes I don't even look at my notes. I just lean in and listen to what they're saying, and the interview is real easy. And so we are in the age of telling our story, but I think we're also in an age of being a good listener and practicing being a good listener. Because if you look at a lot, what's going on out there in the world, not a whole lot of, sometimes not a lot of listening is happening. It's everybody throwing, darts and fireballs and words and their cause and refuting what somebody else is saying. And I think sometimes if we just be quiet and listen to what the other person is saying, a lot of that, you'll find that what they're saying really has value, and you might even learn something. You might even be encouraged, and it might be something that you can pass on to others and find it real valuable.
So true. I worry about the younger generation too. I think we could probably be guilty of our phones and social media and stuff like that. But I think the younger generations that never grew up without a device, I worry about their conversation skills and their ability to listen, because I don't know, it's a way to kind of hide behind things, and you're in front of a screen all day. It's not good emotionally or mentally for kids.
Yeah, I teach at a couple of universities this semester, and the devices in the classroom, sometimes I'm just concerned that my students they're not even listening to me, because they're distracted by that device that's in their hand. And so you have to really, as a professor, you have to be really creative to make sure that students are getting the content and getting the information that you're trying to communicate. So it can be a real challenge to teach in the day of electronic devices in the classroom. It is a challenge, but hopefully we're making some impact with students. I love teaching songwriting, and I love teaching what I think I know about writing books, but it's a battle, when you have to deal with devices in the classroom.
What can we do to, I guess, in order to be still? I think there's a lot of power in that, a lot of peace, and that helps us listen to God too, to be still and just listen to Him and see what He's telling us. Is it for these young people and for everybody, really? Do you think there are some keys there, or is it just a matter of putting the phone down and just having some self-discipline to be still?
Well, I think that's a good place to start. Earlier today, and we happen to live out here in the country, and I'm a city girl by birth and a city girl by nature. I love my city, but there are some benefits to living out here in the country. And just today, and the weather is so beautiful, and I took a little ride down. We have a lake behind our house, and I took a moment to just ride down to the lake, and I put my phone up, and I just opened up my car door and took a little stroll out by the lake, and I had some fish food, and I fed the fish, and I could have, and oftentimes I do. I'm in a hurry, I miss those opportunities, but today I was just drawn to go down to the lake and spend some time without my phone, with just debriefing, and you're
Yeah.
right. You have to be intentional. If not, those moments will be stolen by busyness and anxiety and time thieves and the clock and email and phone calls. And so you have to really make a great effort to take time for yourself. Fear, anxiety, depression are constant, battlefields for us.
Yep.
And but we can come against it if we are more intentional, and if we take the time, to invest. Think of it as investing, in yourself. Think of it as investing in your mental health and even your physical health. To get outside, to breathe some fresh air, to put your phone down for 5 or 10 minutes, and watch. Instead of watching your screen, man, I put the phone down and I watch the birds.
Mm.
I watch the fish. I watch the sky. I watch the water, like stars on the water as the water was
Mm.
glistening in the sunlight, and it was so good. It was such a blessing to be able to spend a few moments in peace and solitude, and we need it. And you have, as you say,
Oh,
we have to be intentional to get it.
absolutely. And there's studies that are done that we as humans need to be near water. And I think they've done studies where just by walking along water or looking at water for a short time, that does something internally, and it helps you fight those battles of depression and anxiety and stress. So yeah, there's definitely something to that. And then
And it's
also it connects
scriptural.
you with God. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
scriptural. I
absolutely.
mean, Psalm 23 says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. It says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters." So God invites us, to talk with Him. He invites
Yep.
us to find those peaceful moments where we can clear our head and get rid of anxiety. So yeah, it's good for us, and it's necessary for us.
Did you ever go through times? I'm sure you have, but like early on when you were trying to carve out what you wanted to do for God and in your art, did you ever come through times where you just felt like, oh my gosh, Satan is working so hard against me? Am I going to get through this? Am I going to be successful for God? Not necessarily, taking it upon yourself, but how did you get through those times when the battle is fierce?
Those times come to all of us, and they certainly came knocking on my door. I remember very vividly when I was still trying to figure out, who I am, or who I was to be stylistically and musically.
Hmm.
Growing up near Detroit, Michigan, which is like a mecca for gospel music. You got so many great artists that came out of Detroit, both on the R&B side and in the gospel side. And I tried to be, like a lot of those gospel artists as a female artist. There's this stereotypical thing that if you're a black female artist, then you have to shout or scream or do all of these vocal licks. And I tried to do those things, but like on a Sunday, but then on Monday I would have laryngitis. I tried
Yeah.
screaming and shouting and doing all those licks, but it just wasn't my style. And there was this part of me that felt like I was too black for white people, and I was too white for black people, and I didn't fit
Mm.
in. And I felt like gray, like I just was a
Yeah.
square peg in a round hole. And then as I began to, develop my music ministry and career, and I began to look out in the audience, and I began to see this beautiful cross section of not just white people or black people, but this beautiful mix of um, ages and races and cultures coming together to worship. And I realized that God gave me the gift that He gave me. It wasn't by mistake, but it was on purpose. He
Mm.
gave me the kind of voice that is neither black nor white. I don't classify my music as black music or white music. I just classify it as hopefully good music, maybe even great
Hmm.
music in some senses. I mean, that's my goal anyway, is to write music that has lasting value. And so that's the bottom line. I just want to be a person that God can use to encourage people, regardless of their race or their age or their culture or their denomination. And God uses this ministry, I think He's using my ministry not to blend in, but to stand out. And
Yeah.
so one of the things that I'm learning, and I'm still learning, is to, and I tell people this all the time: be yourself. Everybody else is taken. And
Yeah, I
that's
love
what
that.
I'm learning is to use my unique gifts, because there's only one of me, and I want to use the gifts that God gave me and use them to the max, to make Him look good. And so that's the bottom line is, if you're a copy, if you're trying to copy somebody else, I heard somebody say this years ago, that if you're a copy, then one of you is unnecessary.
Mm.
So uh, do you celebrate yourself, celebrate the gifts and talents that God has given you, and don't try to blend in, but try to stand out, be different and unique, so that you can be a blessing and God can use you to give Him glory.
And the audience will come, don't you think? I mean, the audience will find you, and we don't have to necessarily try to be like everybody else.
Yeah, well, I've learned that some days you have to let it happen, and
Hmm.
and watch God move on your behalf, and then other days you have to make it happen. You have to do your homework. You have to show up. You've got to rehearse. You got to have your act together. You've got to memorize your music. You've got to be a good songwriter or a good communicator or a good author or whatever it is that God has called you to do. So there's this balancing act of letting it happen and making it happen. And when both of those things are in play, you do your part and leave the rest to God. And
Mm.
that's what I'm, trying to do. And that's what I'm trying to teach, my students is, do the best that you can. Study your craft. People ask me, well, I don't really need to study because the internet will help me, or I really don't need to do my best because I can use artificial intelligence. But I kind of take issue with that, because God requires our best, and you can use auto tune and artificial intelligence and all those kind of things to make beautiful music, but when it comes time to stand on that stage and deliver, you got to be your best. And that's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to do, and that's what I'm trying to teach my students, is to bring your A game every time you get up there, every time you put pen to paper, or every time you use a microphone, or every time you step up on a platform. Bring your A game, because bottom line is, you're doing it to the glory and the honor of God, and to encourage people, and we always want to bring our best.
And he wants us to show up. You're right. He wants us to do all the prep work that it takes to do our best. So I think that's where we meet with God. He'll move mountains, open doors, all those things that we may not even know are happening behind the scenes, but we have to be ready. We have to be ready to shine when those opportunities come about.
And after all, God gave us His best, and so he
Yeah.
deserves nothing short of that, right?
That's absolutely right. It's so interesting what you said a minute ago about you felt like you were too black for white people and too white for black people. Do you feel like at that time God was showing you that what you thought may be something that was hurting you, it was actually your greatest strength, because you were being unique and you were being you, and that He showed you that that was what He wanted you to be.
Absolutely. What I thought was a weakness really was a strength. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I want to encourage people who are listening and watching today, that the thing that you think is your weakness or a weak point, is really one of the things that God will use to launch you. The thing that you think is a
Yeah.
setback is really a setup to your greatness.
That's so true. I think about I think about Mary. Like, what other, I mean, if you think about what God did, she was basically a teenager who was pregnant, and you think about that. My gosh, what kind of ridicule would she have faced back in the day? But that's what He chose. He chose her to bring Christ into the world, and chose a. He could have had Jesus come down on a huge throne and gold, but He didn't. And I think that's a lesson there too, that we don't have to be all these things that are shiny, and we just have to be ourselves. And sometimes the most humble people go on to do great things.
You're absolutely right. I totally agree with that. And that's my story. I'm just an ordinary girl from Jackson, Michigan. And, as a matter of fact, it's a small town, but some great people have come out of Jackson. I don't know if you're familiar with the name Tony Dungy. Tony Dungy and
Yeah.
I are graduated in the same class, and went
Oh,
to the same high
nice.
school together. So, you just never know who you're going to impact, and you never know how you're going to influence someone. So, be yourself. Everybody else is taken.
That's right. That's right. I love him. I'd love to have him on the show. He's such a sweet man. Do you one thing I wanted to ask, we're almost time, but I wanted to ask, we kind of talked about it with the young people coming up. I know you have a special place in your heart for people coming up and trying to showcase their art and their talent. What would you say to somebody, because it can get so tough and the road can get rocky, who's somebody who may doubt themselves or say, oh, this is never going to happen for me? What kind of encouragement could you give those young people coming up today?
Absolutely. First of all, I say, and this is coming from a teacher. Okay, I've always been a teacher. I taught middle high school music for 8 years, and now I teach at the college level, singers and songwriters. So number one, I say study your craft, and you can never look. I've been writing songs now for 40 years, and I've written some songs I think that a lot of people sing and a lot of people enjoy. But when it comes to the bottom line, I still think my best song is yet to be written. I really believe
Hmm.
that. And my best book is yet to be written. So I say study your craft. Know what it is you're talking about. If you want to be a songwriter, then be the best songwriter that you can be. Not just depend on your natural talent, but study how to write a great lyric. Study how to write a beautiful melody. Collaborate. Depend on the strength and the participation of others. That's the first thing I would do. I would study, and then I would practice. And you never can look. I've been on stage now 40 plus years, and I still practice. I still rehearse. I still sit at my piano just about every day, sing, write, practice. So those two things I highly advise. Learn your craft and then rehearse your craft. And then get on stage. Get on stage. And don't worry about how big the stage is. Maybe your
Hmm.
stage is a Sunday school class. Maybe your stage is your church, start at home. Maybe your stage is your church's platform. Or maybe your stage is your school, or maybe your stage is volunteering at a senior center or a convalescent home. It doesn't matter. Wherever there are people, people need to be encouraged. Don't worry whether sometimes it might cost you. You might have to pay for the gas. Don't worry about getting paid. Just worry
Hmm.
about, not even worry, but be more concerned about the impact that you're going to make and not necessarily how much money you're going to make. Because the impact is that you're making is eternal. Money is temporary. And let me tell you, money will come. So don't worry about the money.
Hmm.
Your needs will be met. So I say study your craft, rehearse your craft, and then get on the stage and impact people.
Just get out there and do
Get
it.
out
And
there
I
and
think
do it.
sometimes we can paralyze ourselves sometimes by the, what is it, paralysis by overanalysis, or we can oh, I can't do this because of X or that. Or I think, like you said, you gotta find some place to be able to showcase it and get out there and just keep doing it.
One of
And
my
and
favorite
you're right.
prayers is a 10-finger prayer. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Mm, that's it. That's it. Wow. Babbie, thank you so much for spending time with me. I can't tell you what a great time I had. I hope you did too. It's always
Always,
good
I
to talk
enjoyed
to.
it. Thank you so very much for inviting me.
Of course. Where can people find your work or find you online? How can people get connected?
Yeah, I invite you to go to my official website, Babbie.com. And by the way, at Babbie.com, you'll see all kind of resources, my books, my music. Of course, my books and music are all out there on, all the platforms. You can easily find them, but you can also find them at Babbie.com. And also at Babbie.com, you'll see a link to my internet radio station. And if you go to my website, you'll see a triangular button that's turning around. Click that little button, and that will launch the radio station. Press play and listen to beautiful music and encouraging words 24 hours a day. The station is online. You'll hear my music. You'll hear great worship music. You'll hear great teaching. I play in the evening. I play a block from like 6:30 to 9:30. Bible study programs, Charles Stanley, Tony Evans, James Ford, Max Lucado, Kay Arthur, Priscilla Shire, all these wonderful voices to encourage you. And then a lot of music and encouraging words 24 hours a day. So check it out at Babbie.com. And my links for social media are there on the website. But it's at Babbie Mason, whether that's Facebook or Instagram or whatever. It's at Babbie Mason.
Okay. Yeah. Well, check Babbie out. Go to her website and just follow all the. I mean, it's such a great resource to have that on the radio station. That's awesome. Wow. You're a very special lady, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on with me.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Happiness Sold Separately is created and hosted by Jason Hensley and is produced by Makash Films. Narration by Lauren Gobis. If you or someone you know is in crisis and needs immediate help, call the National Mental Health Hotline at 866-903-3787. We would be honored if you would rate, share, and subscribe.
Aye, that's a good one.